Hey Jess, I'm sorry for the delay in getting this out to you, but I wanted to kind of just address your hip issues and see what we can do to try and help. I think that in America, in general, we have a lot of issues with our hips because we are constantly in a state of hip flexion. Everything we do in this world has to do with hip flexion. The way we sit, the way we drive, the way we walk, everything becomes really dominant on the front of our bodies with our hip being flexed, and it works our quads a lot. The hard part is that we need to strive for balance. So it becomes let's figure out how to stretch and relax everything that's happening on the front part of our bodies, and then on the back build up strength, like in your glutes. So I know you said you didn't think it was necessarily a glute issue. However, I will say, just from my own experience, most times it's a glute issue. Not in the sense that the glutes are causing problems, but that they're not strong enough for what we want them or need them to be able to do. So I thought I would kind of just show you a couple of stretches that I could think about, and maybe a few exercises on what to do to strengthen our glutes. So I don't know what you have access to, but this is a self-myofascial release roller that I love to use whenever I am having issues with my hips. It really helps to loosen me up. It is not like I use it once and afterwards I feel so great. It's more of I notice over time my issues, injuries, problems start to disappear a little bit when I am using it consistently. And if I don't use it consistently, I notice that everything tends to flare up a little bit more. So a couple of places that I like to roll. So my kids broke mine, so now I use a smaller version of it. But I needed a larger one for some things. So when I put it down, I come onto my side, and you essentially want to roll all the way from your hip to your knee, but not actually hitting the joints themselves, not going over any bones. So I'll put my leg, here I'll try to come back a little further so you can see me. I put my leg on it like this, and to take the weight off a little bit, I'll put this top leg down to support it, so I'm not rolling all of my weight onto the roller, because it's a very, very painful thing to do. And then I just go back and forth, and I make sure I'm not going over the joints, not going over the bones themselves. But you'll notice, like, you'll find little pockets of area, and you're like, oh, that really hurts right there. Like, I can feel that. And so then what I'll do is I'll focus on that particular area and just kind of roll back and forth, or even just sit and try to put more weight on it by taking the weight off my top leg and just resting on here itself. So that's what I do, and I like to do that on both sides. And then I also come and I roll my quads so that I am trying to loosen up those muscles as well. So I just kind of sit and rock myself back and forth. And again, there'll be areas, like sometimes mine are more tight right by my knees, like so further down, but not at my knees. My knees aren't actually on it. And sometimes I'm actually tighter up at the top. And so it kind of just, I go back and forth and find out where I'm tight and where I'm not. There are a few hip stretches that I incorporate into my day almost every single day. And this is why I need this all in one piece. So I'm going to do it this way. All right. So I come down and I find something that I can grab onto. This works really well for me. I'm going to put one of my legs out in the front, and I want it out in front enough of me so that when I start to lean forward, my knee is not going to go over my toes. So I need to watch for that. The first thing I do, though, is I take my pelvis and I tilt it forward. So I do a little bit of a hip tilt, pelvic tilt, and I'll even start to feel that stretch already on this side, right? I can start to feel it on this side. Okay, then what I'm going to do is make sure my posture is good, nice and upright. And that's why I use this to kind of hold on, to be able to like push myself up and then lean myself forward a little bit. Now you'll start to feel that really stretch on this part that's down on the ground. Here, I'll come to the side just a little bit so you can see it. I should come to the other side so you can see it a little bit better. So I'm going to push my hip forward, have my foot out in the front so that when I lean forward, it's not going to go over, my knee isn't going to go over my toes. Nice and upright, and lean forward. And then to get the biggest stretch at the end, take this glute and tighten it. So tighten this glute, and that's going to put a lot of stretch right here into this area. And I only hold this for about 10 seconds or so, and then I release. And I kind of just relax for a minute, and then I start that whole process over again, right? Where I start by coming upright, I do a little bit of a pelvic tilt. So I took my pelvis, tilted it forward, I start to lean forward, and as I do that, then I tighten this glute, and it's gonna put a big stretch in this portion of my hip. So that's one way that I like to stretch. Another way, and don't laugh at me because I am like the least flexible person ever. The other way that really gets me stretched is if I kind of come down into this like runner's pose where I've got like a foot out behind me and I've got my leg up here. And if I take my same leg that's out in the front, I take that arm and I start to put it down. Now the first thing I'm gonna do is just kind of slide myself out a little bit. My goal is to get this elbow down on the ground next to the hip. I can't do this yet. Like I am so not flexible. But I'm trying to get that down there and I hold this down here. And the more I put my other hand out, the further I can reach down, but that gives me a really good stretch. And I'll hold that for about 10 seconds, come up and rest, maybe do the other side and then go back and forth. And I'll repeat it so that I'm doing it like 3 times on each side for both of those stretches. So that's an idea for you as well. There's other things that you can do to try and stretch things out. Those are the ones I find the most successful. And then to work on glutes, what I end up doing are what are called clamshells. So I'll come down on my side, and then I'm gonna bend my knees and bend my hips so that I'm kind of like at a 90-degree angle right here at my hip and another 90-degree angle at my knees. And I'm just resting on my side. And I wanna make sure that this top hip is rolled forward so it's actually above the bottom hip or even tilted more forward. I don't want to be rolled back like this because that's not going to get me the desired exercise that I want. I want to actually be rolled forward a little bit more. Then what I do is I take my foot, my ankle, reach it up, and then using my glute, I'm going to turn that knee to match out, and I hold that for just like a second or two and come back down and return back. You want it all to be coming from here, not the side of your leg here. You want to contract on your glute. So I come up here, put my ankle up, and then I'm going to take my knee and externally rotate it out so that it just moves around, and I hold that for a couple of seconds and come back down. And I can even put my hand here on my glute and feel that firing, and that's really what I want to be able to do. Another way to do it is to do what's called a fire hydrant. So you come down on all fours and you're kind of doing the same thing, but you're coming back a little bit and then rotating out and firing that glute and come back down, right? And I can alternate sides to do it, or I could do like 10 on each side. But it's not just like a up and back down. It's like I come up and I contract that glute to the point where it's like my whole leg is shaking. Like I'm contracted as much as I can right here. And I hold that and then come back down. These are like, should make you sweat almost as much as you're doing it. So hopefully that will give you a couple of ideas. Let me know if those stretches work for you or not, because I'm really curious. Alrighty, take care.